Good afternoon. Our next item of business today is portfolio questions. The portfolio is education and skills, and I would remind members that questions 4, 5 and 7 will be grouped together. And we begin with question number 1 from Emma Harper.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government how it is supporting learners who have dyslexia.
Cabinet Secretary John Swinney.
Presiding Officer, we want all children and young people to get the support they need to reach their full potential. We support education authorities in meeting their duties under the Additional Support for Learning Act to identify, provide for and review the additional support needs of their pupils, including pupils with dyslexia. We have provided free professional learning opportunities for practitioners. These support practitioners to further develop their knowledge, understanding and skills in supporting learners with dyslexia. This includes the refreshed Addressing Dyslexia Toolkit and the Dyslexia and Inclusive Practice online professional learning modules.
Emma Harper.
Thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer. It is estimated that around 1 in 10 of us have dyslexia in some form, therefore making it crucial to ensure appropriate support. As this is Dyslexia Awareness Week, can I ask the Cabinet Secretary whether he agrees with me that businesses and employers must also take proactive steps to implement policies and practices which ensure employees with dyslexia have the support that they require?
Cabinet Secretary.
I do agree with that point that Emma Harper has made. I think it's important that individuals with additional support needs are able to make a full contribution to our society. That may in certain circumstances require adaptations in educational practice and support, and equally it will require adaptations and revisions in the world of work. And I think that certainly is an aspiration that will be reflected in the approaches to employment support that are available through Skills Development Scotland and other organisations, and certainly within our college sector. And obviously there are opportunities for us to support that work through Dyslexia Awareness Week.
Daniel Johnson.
Thank you. Learners with neurodevelopmental conditions such as dyslexia, autism and ADHD do have particular support needs, and teachers need skills to support them. The National Autistic Society of Scotland recently suggested that there should be a Minister for Neurodiversity. Does the Cabinet Secretary agree with that suggestion, and will he consider it?
Cabinet Secretary.
I'll certainly consider the suggestion, but as Mr Johnson will appreciate, ministerial responsibilities are not entirely my responsibility. The First Minister has a very significant say in these questions, but I will reflect on what I think is an interesting and helpful suggestion. I would reassure Daniel Johnson that the neurological diversity issues that he raises are issues very much uppermost in the minds of ministers as we try to ensure that practice is in place to support individuals, and that the appropriate training and education is in place for staff to deliver that support into the bargain. But I will give consideration to the suggestion that he has made as part of the ongoing dialogue that we have about meeting the needs of individuals with additional support needs. Obviously, I was very pleased to be able to appoint Angela Morgan to lead the review of additional support needs provision, and I had the pleasure of meeting Angela Morgan yesterday to discuss how she intends to take forward the review.
Thank you. Question 2, Jeremy Balfour.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what its response is to reports that reductions in teacher numbers have impacted on the implementation of Curriculum for Excellence.
Cabinet Secretary.
I'm pleased to advise Mr Balfour that the Government's actions to boost teacher recruitment are working. There are now more teachers than any time since 2010, and the pupil-teacher ratio is at its lowest since 2013. Primary teacher numbers are now at their highest level since 1980. Schools and local authorities continue to ensure that Curriculum for Excellence, both in the broad general education and the senior phase, is delivering the best possible opportunities for young people. I welcome the fact that last year a record proportion of pupils went on to positive destinations such as work, training or further study.
Jeremy Balfour.
Can I thank the Cabinet Secretary for his answer, but if you look at the Scottish Government's recent head teacher survey on implementing the senior phase of Curriculum for Excellence, 75% of respondents said that the availability of teaching staff was a factor that limited head teachers' ability to ensure a broad general education at a senior phase. Cabinet Secretary, isn't it the case the SNP cuts to teacher numbers in previous years have prevented head teachers from being able to successfully implement Curriculum for Excellence?
Cabinet Secretary.
No, I don't accept that view. We've worked very hard over the last few years to boost teacher numbers, and the data speaks for itself that teacher numbers are rising. I accept that there were challenges in the availability of teacher numbers, and we've acted to address that issue. We have to ask ourselves the question, why was there such pressure on teacher numbers? A lot of that is down to the financial constraints within which we've had to operate as a consequence of the austerity that we've had to endure since 2010 under the Conservative government. So we've worked very hard to boost teacher numbers. I'm delighted that they are at the highest level they've been at since 2010, and that is enabling our head teachers to make choices about how they can deliver an effective education for young people across our country.
Ian Gray.
One consequence of reduced teacher numbers is the systematic use of multi-level teaching in the senior school. So what is the Cabinet Secretary's response to evidence published in the Ferret this week that this is more prevalent in schools serving poorer communities and that in some schools most senior classes are taught multi-level?
Cabinet Secretary.
There will be a variety of factors that lead to the existence of multi-level teaching. Some of that will be around about the number of pupils who are who have a desire to take particular courses, and the desire of schools, which I recognise around the country, to make sure that provision is as wide and as broad as possible. And Mr Gray will realise that in some of the schools that operate in deprived areas, the cohort size may be comparatively smaller than in other parts of the country. There will also be, in general, pupil numbers in deprived areas, generally smaller cohorts than in other secondary schools. And these factors will obviously have an effect on the provision of particular courses. But what I don't think schools and head teachers should be criticised for is trying to maximise the opportunities available for young people, which is what they are doing, and that may contribute to multi-level teaching, which of course, as Mr Gray knows, has long been a feature of Scottish education.
Question number 3, Monica Lennon.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government further to the commitment in its 2017-18 programme for government, what progress it has made with the appointment of school-based counsellors.
Cabinet Secretary.
The Government is taking forward its proposals on child and adolescent mental health, which we take very seriously, and the investment in providing access to counsellors in every secondary school is part of a package of measures to ensure that children and young people get the support that they need. We are delivering the commitment in partnership with local authorities who are responsible for the recruitment of counsellors. To support local authority partners, we have agreed distribution of funding to implement the service, a set of aims and principles to underpin development and delivery, and a process for local authority reporting on implementation and progress.
Monica Lennon.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that update. Constituents have raised with me concerns about the number of young people who have considered, attempted or completed suicide, and there is disappointment that the planned rollout of school-based counselling in South Lanarkshire has been delayed. Does the Cabinet Secretary share my disappointment, and can he outline further what steps the Scottish Government will take to support counsellors across Scotland to ensure that the commitment to school-based counselling is being fully fulfilled?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, I want to reassure Monica Lynn that we're taking this forward in partnership with local authorities. So we've gone through the process of agreeing the distribution arrangements. South Lanarkshire Council, the one that Monica Lennon mentioned there, will be receiving £709,000 from the Government to support the school counselling service in 2019-20, and that will rise to £961,000 in 2021. We obviously want to make swift progress in this, and there's a lot of very good work going on within individual schools on supporting the mental health of young people, because I completely accept the importance of the issue that Monica Lennon raises. This morning I was visiting the Royal High School in Edinburgh, where young people have been involved in a bibliotherapy exercise, which is about identifying works of fiction and other books that can help young people who are wrestling with mental health challenges to find empathy and support through participating in reading exercises with young people. And it's borne significant fruit in that school. It's been a product of a lot of collaboration amongst the Edinburgh City Council library services, which is really welcome as well, supported by the Scottish Government School Library Improvement Fund. And so there are a variety of different steps being taken by schools, not to mention what's been undertaken through pupil equity funding to support mental health support. So I completely accept the importance of the issue that Monica Lennon raises, and I assure her that with our local authority partners, we're pursuing the implementation of the commitments we've made to Parliament.
Thank you. Questions 4, 5 and 7 are going to be grouped. Just remind members that if you wish to ask a supplementary on any one of these questions, I will take that supplementary following question 7. So don't take your button off again. Question 4, Jackie Bailey.
To ask the Scottish Government what support it provides for pupils with additional support needs.
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, we want all children and young people to get the support that they need to reach their full learning potential. Under the Additional Support for Learning Act, education authorities have duties to identify, provide for and review the additional support needs of their pupils. The Scottish Government funds a number of services to provide advice and support to children, young people and their families to ensure that they are fully informed of their rights to additional support and can access support and guidance to be involved in any decisions that are made about that support.
Jackie Bailey.
And I thank the Cabinet Secretary for his response. The Scottish Children's Services Coalition have this year highlighted the fall in the number of specialist teachers supporting those with additional support needs, a decline of something like 403 over the last 6 years, which takes it to a new low. And whilst I would welcome funds being made available for pupil support assistance, how much money is the government allocating to plug the hole in the number of specialist teachers?
Cabinet Secretary.
Obviously, there are a range of specialists who provide support and assistance to young people with additional support needs. So I think in Jackie Bailey's question, she acknowledges the importance that teachers, of course, make a huge contribution, but there will be other members of staff who contribute to that process into the bargain. Now, in relation to financial support, in the most recent data that's available, local authorities have increased the amount of money that they are spending in general on education, a real terms increase of 1%, 3% in cash terms. And in relation to additional support for learning, local authorities have increased in real terms the support that they're making available by 0.9%, 2.9% in cash terms. Now, obviously, in addition to that, the government has made available an extra £15 million of resources in this financial year to expand the range of pupil support assistance that are available. And when I discussed these issues with a gathering on additional support needs that the government convened just last week in Edinburgh, there was a very warm welcome for the initiatives the government is taking to support that provision at local level.
Kenneth Gibson.
To ask the Scottish Government what its position is on whether children with additional support needs should be educated at the nearest appropriate school to their home. Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, children and young people should learn in the environment which is best suited to their individual needs. It is for education authorities to determine the most appropriate provision for children and young people with additional support needs, taking account of their legislative responsibilities and the individual circumstances and wishes of children, young people and their families. Guidance for education authorities is provided through the statutory Supporting Learners Code of Practice. Authorities are further supported in these decisions by the refreshed guidance on the presumption of mainstreaming, which was published in March 2019.
Kenneth Gibson.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that comprehensive answer. Does he agree, therefore, that local authorities should be flexible enough to allow children to be educated near their home, even when that means going to a school in a neighbouring local authority?
Secretary.
That may well be a circumstance that is appropriate for that young person. I certainly don't think that local authorities should feel constrained by the necessity to operate within their own boundaries, their own electoral boundaries in terms of the provision of additional support needs to meet the needs of those young people, nor should they feel obliged to move out with the local authority. The key decision making should be around the needs of the child after good dialogue with the child and their family. And I would encourage local authorities to exercise their legislative responsibilities within the context of understanding and accepting the important point that Mr Gibson has made today.
Question 7, Alison Johnson.
To ask the Scottish Government what action it's taking to ensure that assistants in schools for pupils with additional needs have the appropriate training or qualifications.
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, in line with legislation, education authorities must ensure that they have appropriately trained and qualified staff in place to support pupils in their learning. We are currently exploring with key stakeholders how we can further enhance the support offered to wider education staff, including classroom assistants, to ensure that all children and young people get the support that they need to reach their full learning potential.
Alison Johnson.
Thank you. The Cabinet Secretary will appreciate that assistants to support pupils with ASN aren't general classroom assistants, and that supporting ASN pupils requires specialist knowledge and training. And we don't leave it up to individual local councils to manage the registration of ASN teachers, and having 32 different registration schemes wouldn't be feasible. So will the government step in to ensure that ASN assistants are properly supported to assist pupils to make sure that the highest standards apply across Scotland?
Cabinet Secretary.
I'll certainly consider the issue that Alison Johnson has raised, and indeed it may also be an issue which, well, it will be an issue that I will feed into the review of additional support needs provision that Angela Morgan is leading for the government, because I do accept the point in principle that it is vital that the needs of young people are appropriately met, and that the training of staff is effective in ensuring that is the case. So I'll reflect on the suggestion that Alison Johnson has made, and I will certainly put it to the review that is being undertaken by Angela Morgan.
Alison Harris.
Thank you. Last year, there were almost 200,000 pupils with additional support needs in Scotland's schools. Whilst training for classroom support staff is very important, teachers are crying out for specialist additional support needs teachers after their numbers fell by over 10% from 2012 to 2018. So may I ask the Cabinet Secretary what action he is taking to address this reduction in specialist ASN teachers, especially as the identification of special needs is improving all the time?
Cabinet Secretary.
On the data that I have in front of me, there were 51,253 teachers. Forgive me, sorry. I'll leave that point. Sorry, I misread the column there. Well, on the point that Alison Harris raises, there is a fundamental issue about the principle of mainstreaming, that our mainstream teaching population must be able to properly support young people in their requirements. And local authorities must make a judgment about whether they have all of the teaching complement in place that can adequately meet the needs of a young person. And a young person should not be placed in mainstream education unless the local authority is satisfied that there is appropriate skill training available for the education of that young person. So fundamentally, this is a responsibility of local authorities to enable that judgment to be made, and then also for the appropriate support to be put in place for a young person. Now, we are seeing growth in the number of staff supporting pupils with additional support needs. That will obviously be boosted by the announcements that we made in the programme for government, and that's the route that we are taking forward to ensure that the needs of individuals are met appropriately.
Question number 6, Rona Mackay.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what schools are doing to encourage 5th and 6th year leavers to pursue modern apprenticeships, particularly in more affluent catchment areas.
Minister Jamie Hepburn.
Apprenticeships are promoted to teachers, young people and their influencers through a range of regular ongoing campaigns and activity across digital channels, social media, events and traditional media, as well as through careers information and advice. The introduction of and promotion of foundation apprenticeships embeds the apprenticeship offer into the senior phase of secondary schools and supports career paths into modern and graduate apprenticeship jobs.
Rona Mackay.
Thank the Minister for that answer. In my constituency of Strathkelvin and Bearsden, a high proportion of school leavers go on to university, which is of course welcomed. Does the Minister agree that apprenticeships or skills training is an equally positive destination and should be encouraged by all schools?
Minister.
Well, of course, it is very welcome that so many young people go on to university across Scotland. We will continue to support that opportunity. We continue to provide over £1 billion to the higher education sector. But yes, I do agree with the point that Rona Mackay makes. We are working to try and better embed parity of esteem between vocational and academic education. We're doing that through the Developing the Young Workforce initiative. We will be providing 29,000 apprenticeship opportunities this year. I'm sure Ms Mackay will welcome the fact that around 400 apprentices started training in Eastern Bartonshire, the local authority area, of course, where her constituency is located last year, and Skills Development Scotland are reporting they also expect to see a significant increase in foundation apprenticeship starts this year. So much is happening in Strathkelvin and Bearsden, much is happening across Scotland, and we'll continue to promote apprenticeships as a valuable and invaluable part of Scotland's skills and training system.
Thank you very much, Minister. And that concludes topical questions. Portfolio questions.